The chosen by God. They don't hate you. They hate the light awakening within you. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when silence becomes louder than noise, when isolation becomes a sanctuary, and when rejection becomes a sign, not of your failure, but of your transformation. If you have ever found yourself being pushed away, misunderstood, falsely accused, or even hated by those who once claimed to know and love you, then perhaps you are not being punished. Perhaps you are being chosen. You see, when God begins to awaken the light within someone, it rarely goes unnoticed. This light is not physical. It's not something you can see with the eyes, but you feel it. Others sense it. And that is where the shift begins. You begin to outgrow the lies you once believed, the habits you once relied on, the environments that once kept you comfortable. And without you saying a word, your very presence begins to disturb those who are still asleep. Not because you're trying to shine brighter than them, but because your awakening reminds them of everything they've suppressed, denied, or ignored. It's not personal, but it feels personal. The stares, the whispers, the coldness in a room you used to call home. It hurts. But you must understand this one truth. They don't hate you. They hate the light that is awakening within you. Because your light reveals what is hidden. Your healing exposes their wounds. Your purpose exposes their stagnation. Your clarity disrupts their confusion. You walking in truth makes their comfort in lies unbearable. And when people are not ready to face their own shadows, they lash out at the one who simply reflects the truth back to them. Being chosen by God is not about superiority. It's about surrender. It's about being called to carry a light so strong that even darkness can't pretend to exist around you. But that calling comes at a cost. You will lose people. You will be misjudged. You will walk alone at times. Yet in all of that, you will gain something far greater, divine alignment with the one who called you. So if you're wondering why the people around you are changing, why the invitations stopped coming, why the conversations feel awkward, and why the support is disappearing, know this, it's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. You just started to wake up. You just began to shine. And that alone is enough to unsettle those who are still hiding in the dark. This speech is not meant to make you bitter. It's meant to make you aware. Aware of who you are. Aware of what's happening. And most of all, aware of the sacred assignment placed upon your life. Because when God chooses you, He doesn't always make it obvious to the world. Sometimes, He makes it obvious by how the world starts to resist you. The awakening of the light. There is a moment in life, quiet, subtle, but profoundly undeniable, when you begin to feel that something within you is changing. It doesn't come with a loud announcement. No trumpet sounds. No audience cheers. Instead, it arrives like a whisper in the soul, a flicker in the dark, a gentle yet persistent pull away from what you once thought was normal. At first, you question it. You question yourself. You wonder if it's just your imagination or some temporary emotion passing through. But it doesn't leave. In fact, it begins to grow. This is the awakening of the light within you. It's not the kind of light you can see with your physical eyes, and it's not something you can explain with ordinary language. It's more like a remembering of who you are and why you're here. It's as if something deep in your spirit is stretching, reaching toward a truth it always knew, but had long forgotten. And with that awakening comes an uncomfortable clarity. You begin to see the world differently. You begin to hear the lies and conversations you used to laugh along with. You feel the weight of spaces you once considered safe. You notice how much of your life was built on foundations that were never yours to begin with. And here's the part they never tell you about awakening. It doesn't come with applause. It comes with resistance. Because the moment your light begins to rise, it starts to cast shadows, not just in your life, but in the lives of those around you. People who once embraced you begin to retreat. Friends who once supported you start to avoid you. Some may even turn on you, criticizing you for being too different, too intense, or too much. But it's not you they're rejecting. It's not your personality, your choices, or even your presence. What they're rejecting is your light. Why? Because your light awakens something in them they're not ready to face. Your growth reminds them of their stagnation. Your honesty confronts their denial. Your inner freedom unsettles the cages they've chosen to live in. You didn't come to condemn them. You didn't come to expose them. But light does what light does. It reveals. And revelation is a painful thing for those who are still attached to illusion. This is the paradox of being chosen by God. On one hand, You're filled with a fire that can't be extinguished, a clarity, a peace, a purpose. But on the other hand, you're now carrying something the world doesn't understand, something many are threatened by. Because when you begin to rise spiritually, emotionally, and mentally, it exposes the places where others are still asleep. And rather than face their own darkness, many will choose to blame your light. But understand this awakening was not your choice. It was your calling. You didn't force this. You were chosen for it. Chosen not because you were better, but because you were willing. Chosen not because you were qualified, but because you were surrendered. God saw something in you, a capacity to hold the light, to carry the truth, to walk the narrow path even when it costs you everything familiar. And so he allowed the spark to ignite within you. The moment that light awakens, you begin to lose your taste for things that once comforted you. Superficial conversations become exhausting. Toxic environments become unbearable. You no longer crave the approval of the crowd. Instead, you long for authenticity, for purpose, for the presence of God. You stop chasing what's popular and start yearning for what's eternal. And that change, that deep internal shift, is what marks you. It sets you apart. It places a spiritual seal upon your life that the world can feel, even if they can't name it. And because they can't name it, they fear it. Because they don't understand it, they oppose it. Because they can't control it, they reject it. This is why the chosen often walk alone. Not because they're better, but because they're being called higher. And to go higher means leaving behind the weight of people, places, and patterns that can't follow. It means embracing seasons of loneliness so that you can be trained, refined, and equipped by the one who called you. For the light within you is not just for you. It's meant to guide others. But first, it must be tested in the darkness. You must learn how to carry it without ego, without fear, without compromise. That's why the beginning of awakening often feels like a breaking. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. You are not being abandoned. You are being aligned. The shedding you are going through is sacred. It is making room for the fullness of what you're meant to carry. The world may not see it yet. Those closest to you may misunderstand you. But God sees it. Heaven recognizes it. And the kingdom within you is beginning to stir. So do not dim your light to make others comfortable. Do not shrink to fit into spaces God is calling you out of. The rejection you feel is the world's reaction to your rising. But let it rise. Let the light awaken fully. Let it change you. Let it separate you. Let it make you into the vessel you were always meant to be. Because when God begins something in you, no opinion, no resistance, and no hatred can stop what he has ordained. Let the light awaken. Why they hate you when you begin to change. When you begin to change, truly change, it's not just your habits that shift. It's your frequency, your energy, your presence. And when that transformation begins, something strange happens. People start to treat you differently. Some distance themselves. Others lash out. Some look at you with eyes that once admired you, now filled with suspicion. You might find yourself wondering, what did I do wrong? Why are they acting like this? I'm just trying to be better. Shouldn't they support me? But the truth is, you're not being punished. You're being revealed. You see, when your light begins to grow, it acts like a mirror. And not everyone is ready to see their reflection. Your decision to grow, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, makes those who are standing still deeply uncomfortable. Not because you've harmed them, not because you've judged them, but because your evolution disrupts the illusion they've been living in. It's easier for people to stay asleep when everyone around them is asleep. It's easier to keep pretending when no one is living truthfully. But the moment you awaken, you shift the dynamic. You challenge the unspoken agreement to remain small. And people will either rise with you or resent you for rising. That resentment is rarely honest. It doesn't usually sound like, I feel insecure watching you grow. Instead, it shows up as mockery, sarcasm, passive-aggressive comments, dismissive attitudes. They'll say you've changed, but not in a good way. They'll accuse you of being arrogant, self-righteous, even fake. But it's not about you. It never was. It's about what your transformation triggers in them. Because deep down, your light reveals their shadows. Your honesty confronts their denial. Your clarity exposes their confusion. And your freedom reminds them of their chains. And for some, that's just too much to bear. The truth is, people often attack what they don't understand, and they reject what convicts them. You living in alignment with your purpose makes others question whether they've ignored theirs. You setting boundaries exposes where they've had none. You seeking God seriously exposes how casually they've treated the sacred. Your healing reminds them that they're still wounded. And your joy? It agitates those still trapped in bitterness. So don't be surprised when the ones closest to you become the most vocal critics. Growth often divides, not because you're looking to separate yourself, but because transformation demands it. God is not interested in you being accepted by the crowd. He's interested in you being authentic to your calling. And the two rarely coexist peacefully. Jesus himself experienced it. The people he grew up with said, "Isn't this the carpenter's son?" They couldn't accept the light that had grown inside someone they thought they already understood. And so they rejected him, not because of what he did wrong, but because of what he revealed just by being who he truly was. That same dynamic plays out in your life. People have a version of you that fits their comfort zone. When you step outside of that box, they feel betrayed. They feel threatened. And instead of growing, they attack. They try to bring you back down, not because they hate you, but because they fear what your change means for them. But here's what you must remember. Their discomfort is not your problem to solve. Your job is not to make others feel safe by playing small. Your job is to obey the calling that God placed on your life, even if it offends people who haven't yet discovered theirs. You don't need their permission to shine. You don't need their validation to evolve. You don't need their applause to keep going. You were never called to be liked. You were called to be light. And light, by its nature, disrupts darkness. So when they roll their eyes, keep shining. When they whisper behind your back, keep shining. When they say you've changed, say thank God, and keep shining. Because you didn't come this far to dim your soul, just to keep others comfortable. God didn't awaken you just for you to pretend you're still asleep. He lit the fire in you so that others might one day find their way by your flame. And yes, some will be offended, but others will be inspired. And that's who your light is for, not the critics, but the hungry. Not the ones who mock, but the ones who are searching. Not the ones who fight the light, but the ones who desperately need to see it. So don't internalize the hate. Don't make it personal. Don't let it stop you. Let it teach you. Let it refine you. Let it strengthen your resolve. Because if your light wasn't powerful, they wouldn't react at all. The fact that they're bothered means your presence is shaking something in the atmosphere. And that's confirmation, not condemnation. You're not here to fit in. You're here to wake people up. And sometimes, waking people up doesn't look pretty. Sometimes it looks like resistance. Sometimes it looks like loneliness. But all of it is preparation. God is building something in you that's bigger than their opinions. So don't retreat. Don't apologize for growing. Don't hide your evolution. Keep becoming who you were always meant to be. Because what's awakening in you is not just a phase. It's not a trend. It's destiny. And once that light is turned on, you'll never be able to go back to sleep again. Let them talk. Let them misunderstand. Let them walk away. But you? Keep walking with God. Keep rising. Keep shining. The chosen must walk through isolation. There comes a season in the life of every chosen one when the crowd disappears. The noise fades. The friendships dissolve. The invitations stop coming. The room that used to feel full now echoes with silence. And in that silence, a sacred truth begins to emerge. God doesn't raise his chosen in the spotlight. He raises them in solitude. When you are truly called, you will walk through a wilderness. Not because you've done something wrong, but because you're being made right. You will feel the sting of betrayal. You will feel the ache of loneliness. You will cry out to God, wondering why the people you once loved now seem so distant, so indifferent, even hostile. You'll ask questions like, why did they leave? Why did they turn on me? Why is no one standing with me? And the answer may not come in words, but it will come in presence. Because in that isolation, God begins to draw near. The separation is not punishment. It's preparation. God separates before he elevates. And if you belong to him, you must go through the pruning. Not everyone can go where you're going. Not everyone can carry what you're called to carry. Not everyone can handle the light God is awakening inside of you. So he begins to strip away. He begins to purify. He begins to refine, not only your surroundings, but your soul. He removes the noise so you can hear his voice. He clears the room so you stop leaning on the crowd and start leaning on Christ. And at first, that hurts. The silence is heavy. The stillness is loud. You may feel forgotten, even forsaken. But hear me, God is not punishing you. He is protecting what's inside of you. He is building you in private for what he will do through you in public. He is training your spirit to stand alone, so that when the time comes to lead, to speak, to rise, you won't crumble under pressure because you've already stood in the fire and survived it. Look at every person God ever called deeply in scripture or history, and you will find a pattern. Isolation precedes activation. Joseph was thrown in a pit by his brothers, then into prison before he ever touched a palace. Moses fled to the wilderness for 40 years before he ever stood before Pharaoh. David was anointed king but then ran for his life, hiding in caves and rejected by men. Even Jesus withdrew into the wilderness before he began his public ministry, fasting, alone, tempted, and yet victorious. Why? Because intimacy with God requires detachment from the noise of the world. And the more he deposits into you, the more he must protect you from environments that will contaminate the calling. Sometimes he isolates you not because others are bad people, but because they are not part of your next chapter. They were necessary for your old identity, but they cannot sustain your anointing. So don't fear the silence. Embrace it. Don't resent the solitude. Learn from it. This is the season where God becomes your friend, your teacher, your counselor, your source. This is where you learn to hear his whisper. This is where you discover that your worth was never tied to people's approval, but to God's assignment. This is where you learn to stand not on what's popular, but on what's eternal. And when you stop trying to go back to what God has already removed, you begin to walk forward in the fullness of your purpose. But the road is narrow. And yes, at times it will be lonely. But you are not truly alone. Heaven is watching. Angels are guarding. The Spirit is speaking. God is guiding. The world may turn its back, but the kingdom is opening its arms. And while they may laugh at you now, they will marvel later. Because what God does in the wilderness never stays in the wilderness. What he births in secret always manifests in power. So let the rejection refine you. Let the silence sanctify you. Let the solitude strengthen you. Don't rush back into circles that God has broken. Don't beg for invitations to tables God removed you from. Don't dilute your light to blend into places you've already outgrown. You are not in exile. You are in training. You are not forgotten. You are being formed. You are not being buried. You are being planted. And in due time, what's growing in the dark will rise in the light. So hold fast. Trust the process. Let the wilderness do its holy work. Because the isolation is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of your becoming. And when God brings you out, it will be clear to all that the silence was sacred, that the suffering was strategic, and that the time spent alone with him was never wasted. The chosen must walk through isolation, not because it's easy, but because it's essential, because only in solitude can the soul be set on fire. And once you've been lit by heaven, no darkness can put you out. Continue to shine, even if they hate you. Now that you've awakened to the light within you, now that you've endured the backlash, the rejection, the solitude, the question becomes, what now? What do you do when you know you've been chosen, but the world still treats you like you don't belong? What do you do when your light keeps growing, but so does the resistance? When the more you align with your purpose, the more they mislabel you, misunderstand you, and mistreat you. You keep shining anyway. That's the calling of the chosen. You don't shine because it's safe. You don't shine because it's easy. You shine because God lit something in you that cannot be hidden. And no matter how uncomfortable it makes the people around you, that light was not meant to be dimmed to protect their comfort zones. It was meant to disturb the darkness. Yes, they may hate you, but they're not really hating you. They're reacting to the presence of something holy. They're reacting to the part of you that no longer needs their approval, that no longer fits their narrative, that no longer serves their illusions. And when people can no longer control you, they often try to cancel you. They will talk about you, lie about you, call you crazy, rebellious, arrogant, or too spiritual. But you know what they rarely call you? Wrong. Because deep down, something in them knows that what you carry is real. And that's what makes it so offensive. It's not your volume that bothers them. It's your clarity. It's not your ambition. It's your assignment. It's not your energy. It's your alignment with God. And you must be bold enough to carry that, even when it costs you everything familiar. Because here's the truth. Being chosen is not about being comfortable. It's about being obedient. It's about staying faithful to the voice of God when every other voice is trying to drown it out. It's about continuing to speak truth in a world addicted to lies. It's about refusing to fit in when you were born to stand apart. It's about choosing the narrow road even when the wide one is full of praise, followers, and applause. So what if they hate you? Jesus said they would. He said, "If the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first." He didn't promise popularity. He promised persecution. But he also promised something far greater: presence. The presence of God with you, in you, around you. The strength to stand in fiery places and not be burned. The peace to walk through storms and not sink. The anointing to step into rooms and shift atmospheres just by being who you are. This is why you shine. Not to be seen, not to be liked, not to prove a point, but because the world is desperate for light, whether it admits it or not. Because somewhere, someone is watching you silently, wondering how you keep going. They see the hate. They see the rejection. They see the isolation. And yet they also see the fire in your eyes, the joy in your step, the peace on your face. And even if they never say a word, you are showing them what it means to be chosen and still courageous, called and still kind, hated and still holy. Your light is not just about you. It is about the people assigned to your influence. The ones who will rise because you refuse to shrink. The ones who will believe because you refuse to bow. The ones who will wake up because you refuse to go back to sleep. So don't dim now. Not after all you've walked through. Don't doubt now. Not after all he's delivered you from. Don't hide now. Not when the world needs your light more than ever. Let them call you names. Let them misjudge your motives. Let them walk away. Let them mock what they don't understand. But don't you dare stop being who God created you to be. Don't you dare silence your truth to soothe someone else's insecurity. Don't you dare betray your light just to gain temporary acceptance. Because what God is doing through you will outlast their opinions. What he's birthing in you will survive their attacks. And what he's called you to do will not be stopped by those who cannot see the vision. So rise, speak, shine, love boldly, walk freely, lead fearlessly, and keep your eyes on the one who lit the fire in you in the first place. You were not chosen to be popular. You were chosen to be pure. You were not chosen to be safe. You were chosen to be set apart. You were not chosen to please man. You were chosen to honor God. So shine, even if it offends, even if it challenges, even if it costs you relationships, platforms, opportunities. Shine, because when you do, you are not just living, you are fulfilling. You are stepping into the divine reason why you were created. And in that space, no hate, no darkness, no rejection can stop you. Because chosen ones don't burn out, they burn brighter. And the brighter you shine, the more the world will see, not just you, but the God who chose you.